Hello and welcome to Human Anatomy Prep. I'm Ty Gardner and I'll be your instructor. Here's a concept map for the integumentary system. We often just call this the skin, but there's a lot to it. The first thing you should know is that the integument consists of two main layers, the epidermis and dermis. The subcutaneous layer, also called the hypodermis, isn't a layer of the skin, but is associated with it. After talking about layers, I'll mention a few functions of the integument. There are a lot. Then I will define a few words associated with blood flow to the skin. Finally, we'll go back to the epidermis, because hair, nails, and glands all come from this layer. The epidermis is the superficial layer of the skin, meaning it's on the outside and is what we see. The epidermis is composed of keratinized, stratified squamous epithelium. It provides physical protection and is a barrier to infection because it is stratified, or many layers thick. You may learn the layers, or strata, of the epidermis in anatomy. The superficial layer is the stratum corneum. Superficial cells have lost their organelles. They are dead, and are made hard by keratin. They flake off. The dermis is the deep layer of the skin. It is sandwiched between the epidermis and the subcutaneous layer. Notice how the hair follicle is part of the epidermis, but extends deep into the dermis. This is also true for glands. The dermis actually has two layers, papillary and reticular, so it is composed of two tissues. The papillary layer is areolar connective tissue. The reticular layer is dense, irregular connective tissue. Papilla means nipple-like. The papillary layer is the thin, wavy layer just under the epidermis. The rest is reticular. The subcutaneous layer, literally meaning under the skin, is composed of areolar and adipose tissues. It is flexible. Grab your skin under your arm and wiggle it to see. And is a pathway for nerves and vessels. Now that we've seen the 2+1 layers of the integument, let's ask ourselves, what does it do? It protects us because the epidermis is stratified and because white blood cells can enter the dermis. It helps us maintain a constant body temperature. Fat insulates. Sweat cools. We can control blood flow to discourage heat exchange with the external environment when we are cold, or encourage heat exchange with the external environment when we are hot. So, how do we talk about controlling the flow of blood? We have words for that. Vasodilation is an increase in vessel diameter to increase blood flow to an area, like when you are hot. Vasoconstriction is a decrease in vessel diameter to decrease blood flow to an area, like when you are cold. Cyanosis is when someone's skin turns blue from lack of blood or oxygen in the blood. Hemoglobin in red blood cells is bright red when high in oxygen, but looks blue in the skin when low in oxygen. Cyanosis can result from vasoconstriction in the skin, but can indicate respiratory problems in other cases. Our integument is an important sensory organ. It has many different receptors that respond to stimuli like temperature, pain, and touch. You may investigate these in the integument or sensus chapters. Vitamin D is synthesized in the skin in response to ultraviolet UV radiation. Vitamin D, essential for bone health, is needed for the absorption of calcium and phosphorus. The need for limited amounts of UV radiation is so strong, it largely explains the differences in the amount of melanin the primary pigment responsible for skin color in people from different geographic areas of the world. Populations that evolved near the equator, or at high elevations, have more melanin for UV protection than populations that evolved at higher latitudes, where it is harder to get enough UV light for vitamin D synthesis. Melanin protects the dividing cells of the epidermis in the stratum basale, or stratum germinativum. Our last topic is epidermal derivatives, things that come from the epidermis but might be located in the dermis. These include hair, nails, and glands. Hair is made of keratinized cells, like the epidermis of the skin, but needs blood from the dermis to fuel its growth. Hair comes in 3 basic varieties. Lanugo is fetal hair. It is sometimes seen on premature infants. Vellus is the short, light-colored hair on your face and body. Terminal hair is the thicker, pigmented hair. Nails are built from dead keratinocytes. They protect the distal ends of our digits, our fingers and toes. One of the things epithelial tissue does is secrete. It's not surprising, then, that glands come from the epidermis. The 2 main kinds of glands we have are sudoriferous, or sweat glands, and sebaceous, or oil glands. There are 2 kinds of sweat glands. Here we see a merocrine, or eccrine sweat gland, used for cooling. Apocrine sweat glands appear at puberty and are found with hair follicles in the axilla, armpit, and pubic region. Sebaceous glands produce oils, or sebum, that help waterproof the skin. Lanolin is sheep sebum. I hope this has been helpful. Your next stop is the video on bone.